Hey everybody, it's Katie Glazier, Program Director at the J. Today I'm going to let you in on a little family secret. For those of you who know me know my mom makes the absolute best chocolate chip cookies on the face of the planet. People call them Hinda cookies. They are highly revered, and I am going to show you my spin on these. No, this is not the exact recipe that my mother uses. I do it slightly differently, and they are delicious no matter how we do it. So, the first thing that we're going to do is mix our dry ingredients in this bowl. This is flour. It's 2.5 cups, 2 1/4-ish cups of flour. And then to that, we are going to add 1 teaspoon of salt. I use table salt. You could use kosher salt. You don't want something that's too thick, but kosher salt's okay too. Put that in, and 1 teaspoon of baking soda, not baking powder. There is a difference that I'm sure someone with a chemistry kind of background would be able to tell you. I just know that it works with baking soda. Okay, so those go in there. I'm just gonna stir them with my measuring spoon just to get them incorporated. So now I just have my flour mixture. I'm going to put that to the side. The recipe that this is based on is the recipe from the back of the Nestle Toll House bag of chocolate chips. However, I find that the butter that the recipe calls for is too much and the cookies get really thin and spready, which is not what I like. So I use 1.5 sticks of butter instead. These have been sitting out for a while, so they're a little bit squishy, but they certainly are still solid. It's called softening is the official term. Just put them on the counter in the morning, make the cookies in the afternoon, you'll be good. All right, so 1.5 sticks of butter goes in. All right, and now I am going to add the sugar to this in a second, but I just want to get the butter started a little bit first. So, here we go. All right, so what I did here was just beginning the process of creaming the butter, which we do with the sugar. So you can see the butter started to get a little bit losing its shape. It's getting a little bit fluffy. To that, I'm going to add 3/4 of a cup of lightly packed brown sugar. You can use light or dark. I am using light. And 3/4 of a cup of white sugar. Now, you can, if you don't love as sweet of a cookie, you can use a little bit less without changing the recipe texture too much. So, creaming the butter and sugar together. This will take about 1.5 minutes. Okay, so what I'm doing now, we're about halfway through the creaming process. I'm just taking a spatula and getting everything off the sides of the bowl so that it can incorporate better together. And at this point, I'm also adding 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Usually you're not supposed to measure over the bowl because if your hand slips and you get a little extra, that can ruin the recipe, but a little tiny bit of vanilla extract never hurt anybody. All right, now we're gonna mix some more. All right, so you can see now it's gotten pretty light in color and the butter has no shape from that log that it was in when we started. It also smells amazing. It smells really, really good, but it's butter, sugar, and vanilla. What could be bad? So what we're gonna do now is we're going to add the eggs one at a time. So I have 2 large eggs here. You can also see, I just want to show you that I kind of scrape the bowl down again. The things that get stuck high on the side of the bowl aren't going to get incorporated, and that's not delicious. So you want to make sure that you are getting everything incorporated. Also, if you don't have a stand mixer, you can do this with a hand mixer. You can also just do it with a wooden spoon and a whole lot of elbow grease. If you're using the elbow grease method, you really just want to make sure that you get everything all mixed together because you don't want chunks of butter in the cookies or big chunks of sugar. You really want everything to be mixed together. It is possible to do it by hand, but if you have a mixer, I recommend it. All right, here we go with the eggs. I'm going to turn the mixer on. I'm going to add 1 egg, wait for it to be mixed together, and then add the other. So now you can see it's starting to form a little bit more of a dough, like a batter, what we would think about. So we're gonna wait for it to be all incorporated. All right, and then I'm gonna push the stuff out of the whisk attachment. Get it back out. You don't have to be too perfect with it, that's good enough. And then get the stuff down from the sides. All right, now I'm going to add the second egg. You're gonna let this go not too long. You're really just looking for it to be incorporated. And again, you're gonna wanna push the stuff down on the side. You might not be able to see, there's still a little bit of yolk hiding up here at the top out of the range of the mixer. So now I'm gonna put this down. Now I am not using pasteurized eggs, and so I am not going to eat this batter raw because there is a school of thought that there can be salmonella inside of the eggs. I know a lot of people don't buy into that. So my official recommendation is if you want to eat the dough raw, please use pasteurized eggs, but I'm sure it's delicious if you do try it. All right, so now we have got all of our wet ingredients in here. What we're going to do now is add our dry ingredients. So I have all of this flour that needs to go into the bowl. However, if I just dump it all in there, I'm going to make a giant cloud of flour and it will go everywhere, and instead of in the bowl, which is where we want it. So I'm gonna add about a third. I'm just gonna eyeball it. Probably a little closer to half. I'm gonna start it on slow just to get it incorporated, and then I'm gonna kick the speed up a little bit to make sure all of the flour should disappear. And we should not see any more of the white flour. We should be seeing the batter. I don't wanna overmix it, so now I'm gonna do another third. Again, starting it on low so that it can get incorporated a little bit, and then kicking it up a little. And I'm really just going until the flour disappears. All right, I'm gonna do my last third of the batter. Starting it on slow, and I'm gonna kick it up. I've got some flour sitting up there. That is gonna work its way in, and I'm not so worried about it. Also because I know I have one more mix that I need to do. All right, so now I'm gonna scrape the sides down, and now the batter is pretty thick. So you're gonna wanna push it out from your beater attachment. And right now I'm really trying to get all of it off because I do the chocolate chips and mix them in by hand. That also lets me get all the way to the bottom of the bowl where a lot of raw flour tends to hide, and that will mess up the cookies. All right, so the beater goes away. I'm gonna take this off the mixer. Just push the mixer to the side. All right. So now I've got my dough, and I need to do my chocolate chips. Now, this is another one of my secrets that I'm going to share with all of you because we're all home on quarantine, and I want you to make and enjoy these cookies as much as I do. The recipe calls for 2 cups, right? 2 cups of chips. I use 1.5.
Where can we find bigger bags of chips?
This one came from Costco. All right, so 1 cup, and then again, I don't get too precious. I just don't fill that second cup up all the way. And the reason for that is I really like the taste of the batter, and I think that when there's too many chips, then the cookies just don't set right. So now what I'm gonna do is just kind of fold them in using my spatula. You can, if you want, put this back in the mixer. I just find that the chips don't get incorporated well, and also then you still have to go down to those little bits of flour that get stuck at the bottom. chip overboard. All right. Okay. So I'm getting down there. Look, I see I have all these chips hiding over there. And you can see there's a little bit of the batter that didn't get fully wet with the eggs and the butter, and I'm trying to get it now. Okay. All right, so what I'm doing now is putting the cookies onto the tray, and I'm going to give you another little tip for what I like to do to make sure that I can have chocolate chip cookies fresh and warm from the oven anytime that I want. The recipe tells you to use a tablespoon. To me, that makes a really big cookie, and why have one cookie when you can have two smaller cookies? So I have a 2-teaspoon measurer, and that's what I'm using to put the cookies out on the tray. So what I do is just pull it out. You know, it goes in, it's a little bit over full, that's okay. And then it just goes right out onto the tray. I'm putting enough space between the cookies, even though these won't spread as much because we didn't use the full amount of butter. They do still spread a little bit, and we're trying to make individual cookies and not a giant cookie cake. Not to say that a giant cookie cake would not be super delicious. I use these cookies for all sorts of things, obviously to eat. They make great ice cream sandwich cookies, and they also are really wonderful for bribery purposes. When you're trying to, you know, curry favor with someone, a little bag of cookies goes a long way, I find. All right, so what we're doing now is I'm almost done this tray. And then I'm going to show you on this little tray what I do to always have cookies ready. So I'm just going to put one more cookie on this tray. And the reason why I'm making these cookies today is because my brother-in-law sent me a note telling me just how his life would be so complete if he had some cookies. So here you go, David, making some cookies for you. Okay. So what am I doing on this tray? You're going to see that I'm putting them very close together. That is because these are going to go into the freezer for about an hour and then into a plastic bag. What this lets me do is when I feel like having some fresh baked cookies, I can just go into the freezer, pull out the little balls of dough as I need, and voila, just they bake, and I have fresh, delicious cookies in 10 minutes, 12 minutes, depending on how long they're going to take to bake. And that's a really nice thing. Sometimes you just don't want to have 24 cookies laying around the house. I don't know why not, but sometimes that's just not the right thing. So I put these much closer together, and that way when they go into the freezer, they freeze individually. That way you don't end up with a big giant mess and like a big log that you have to slice or something. You just end up with these nice little cookies. So I'm going to finish portioning these out, and then I will show you how they go into the oven. All right, so here we go. They are in the oven. They are going to bake, because they are not frozen, they're going to bake between 9 and 11 minutes. I will set a timer for 9 minutes and then check on them. I also will, about halfway through, turn them around so that they evenly brown. Take the ones from the top shelf to the bottom shelf and turn them around back to front. I will show you when we do it. We are 9 minutes into the baking process, and I am switching the cookies from the front to the back and top to the bottom. You can see that they have puffed up and they look really great. They are not at all brown, and they are very soft, so they are not done. They need to go back in the oven. And now I watch them closely, because this part does happen quickly. I'm going to set the timer for 2 minutes, but I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going upstairs to make a phone call. I'm not going to check my email. I am staying here with the cookies, because they will go from deliciously golden brown to burnt and crispy in about 30 seconds. So we're going to wait 2 minutes and see what happens. They are done. They smell terrific. They are lightly golden brown. You can see some dark browning. Videographer, please come in. You can see some dark browning around the edges. I'm going to take the other ones out. Whoa. The thing about these cookies is they bring people from all over the house. Zachary had just been playing Roblox with his friends, but he heard the word cookies online. we are social distancing. But then he came when he heard cookies. So these are gonna cool for a couple of minutes and then we're gonna eat them. So there's a few things that I forgot to say while we were in the process of making the video. So while the cookies are cooling, I'm gonna tell you about them now. One, I use parchment paper under the cookies and over the tray. It makes sure that they don't stick, so I get a nice, beautiful bottom every single time. They don't stick. I don't have to use a spatula to get them up. They just lift right up, which is wonderful. It also means that I don't have to wash the trays after because nothing touched them. So that's another nice little trick that I have. And finally, I did not tell you that the oven was set for 375. So we are just waiting for these to cool. My family is eagerly waiting which ones they're going to eat. And you'll find out which of these they chose when we come right back. Okay, my official taste testers have each chosen a cookie. Please eat it and tell us what.
There, you can have mine.
That was so cruel of you. How is it?
Crumbly. No, they're delicious. I'll give you another one.
I wouldn't know.